and I'll be giving you a little synopsis of my thesis for the honors program. This is research that I did. It's the factors that influence the ability of a novice investor making the right investment decision based on their risk attitude. By novice investor, I mean college students. So with the new technology that there is today, with just a minute and internet connection, you have access to millions of investment tools. However, as you can see by our statistics, not many people are taking advantage of the investment options that we have out there. In fact, most online brokers such as E-Trade, Scottrade, give you many commission-free investment opportunities and tools out there. And as you can see, only actually taking advantage of those retirement tools. So when it comes to retirement, many people experience a financial. They say that's due because it's investing in 401k plans. So how did 401k plans come about? So before, there was defined benefit. Defined benefit is when the employers put in a little bit every month or so based on your year, how long you've been with the company, on your salary. They put it away for you and they vest it for you. They hold all the risks, and also if there's losses, they're responsible for that. And once you retire, you get that set amount every month after your retirement. You don't have to do anything. It's very easy. But then in 1978, Congress decided, hey, we're going to pass an act that changes our retirement portfolio, a defined contribution rather than defined benefit. So what is a defined contribution? Defined contribution is when the employees are responsible for investing their own money. And often employers match however much you set aside for your 401k. So it changes the risk from the employer to the employee, which also means that the employee bears all the losses and all the risks in their own retirement. So their retirement is a direct fruit of their investment success or failures. The private industries followed. They started adopting defined contribution rather than defined benefit plans. And so I wanted to study if we have research here saying that most of financial shortfalls are due to missed 401k investing, then what can we do to prevent that? Like, to improve society's retirement outcome, it is important to study the design of retirement plans, especially investment options available to participants and their investment decisions. So I decided to come up with a thesis that has 2 questions. So my first question is, I empirically examine how one aspect of the plan design, meaning the number of options, affects the probability of a novice investor making the right decision based on his or her risk tolerance. And then my second question is whether the demographics of that novice investor, academic standing, if they're honors or non-honors, if they have previous investing experience, impact the likelihood of them choosing the correct investment option that matches their risk attitude. Here's a little bit of an overview of what I'm going to go over. I'm going to explain to you a little bit about the existing literature out there on this topic, how it contributes to the literature, explain how I tested my hypothesis, display the results, and then analyze the data and conclude with an overview. So literature, there's 2 strands of literature. There's psychological strand and there's a financial strand. And the first strand of literature studies how the number of choices affect decision making. And there's a study out there, it's a 3-part study that came out with saying the more choices somebody has, the less likely they're actually to pick something. So if we look back, okay, 401k plans have tons of options. Is that true for the finance world? So that's our second strand is the financial. There's a study in 2004 that tests the presence of overload phenomenon in 401k plans. And they did find that the greater number of 401k plans offered, the less the probability of employee participation. So if that's true in psychology, that's true in finance, how can we test it? Perhaps in attempting to provide employees with a generous number of 401k options, employers may be actually harming them and disencouraging them from investing. And so the study makes two important contributions to literature. Even though there's large literature number of choices, participation rate, these two studies neglect that younger population, so going back to the novice investors. And then the second part that this study contributes with, the literature in financial literacy does not account for risk tolerance. And so we are going to study what would be almost a supplement to the current study, is that by adding in a risk attitude factor. And so the study first measures the investment risk attitude, and then we assess the impact of the number of options on the investment portfolio composition. Methodology. The study uses a survey of Marymount undergraduate students. I wanted to have both business and non-business students an equal percentage, so I asked both teachers from the arts and science school and the business school, and I pre-arranged with them to give out their. And that was important to have a 50-50. I wanted to see if their academic major had an impact as part of the demographics, whereas academic standing, if they were honors or non-honors, did not have to have a equal percentage. And so we are going to study based on, we're going to survey them with subcategories of academic standing, business or non-business, whether the student has any investment experience. And then the second section of the survey was actually to assess the participants' risk tolerance. So first section, just get demographics, what are they? Second section was, where do they fit, giving their own risk tolerance. So they took the survey. It is cited in over 120 studies as a multidimensional financial risk instrument. And that's the second part of the survey. And then the third part, which is also the most important, once they decided, hey, I picked a level 2 of risk tolerance. Then they have to go to the third section of the survey and actually pick out what investment choice they would like to invest in. So in the third part of the survey, they had survey A and they have survey B. So survey A tests, gives them 5 investment choices, and survey B gives them 20. So that's where we're testing the number of options available to the novice investor. And we're also testing to see if they're able to recognize it, because on survey 2, they tested, for their risk tolerance. So if they tested a 2, we actually would like them to get third part of the survey and also pick an investment option that would be a risk tolerance of a person of 2. And by 2, I mean they're into 5 groups. They're conservative, moderately aggressive, and 1 is conservative, and a 5 is an aggressive person. And so survey 1, invest options that fit a person's tolerance, while survey B offers 4. So survey 1, you would have 1 conservative option on your investing on the third section of the survey, whereas survey B, you would have 4 options, but they're grouped in like groups. So that way we had conservatives, we had moderately aggressive, we had aggressive, and we were hoping that on the third section they would be able to find their own section and pick that as an investment choice. I was not only looking to see if a participant will choose the right investment option based on his or her risk tolerance, but I also wanted to invest whether the demographics and their characteristics, such as academic standing, business or non-business, honors or non-honors, and investment experience, impacts the likelihood of the survey correspondent choosing an investment option that correctly matches his or her risk attitude. So here's my data. So questionnaires were given to 214 Marymount students. We received 164 responses back, and there were a fairly division between business and non-business students. However, there was not an equal percentage of academic standing, honors, non-honors, and students of investing experience. So here's just an overall look at my sample. As you can see, we had mostly freshman students, mostly non-honor students, and mostly students with no investing experience. So when we're looking into risk aversion is if you have a low tolerance for risk, you'd be qualified as a 1. If you have a high tolerance for risk, you'd be qualified as a 5. And we did an average to find out, and freshmen had the more did not fit that nice trend of decreasing risk aversion because 1/3 of sophomores are actually honor students. And when we looked at honor students, they had a 1.6 average in risk aversion, whereas non-honor students had a 1.9. So they definitely brought down the scores for our sophomores. Otherwise, it would have been a nice trend, whereas freshmen have a higher risk tolerance, whereas tolerance. And then recall that Survey A contains 5 investment options, whereas Survey B contains 20 investment options. And so the first question of the study was, does the number of choices affect the ability of a novice investor make the right decision given their risk attitude? And so overall, we had a 22% correctness. Correctness meaning they picked the right investment choice based on their risk attitude. And Survey A compared to Survey B were fairly similar. There's not a clear division between the ones with 5 options versus 20 options. And then we looked by academic standing. And as you can see, seniors did fairly better than freshmen, scoring close to 30%. We believe it's because of investment sophistication or education. They attained a better investing education, so therefore they did better than freshmen. They've been here longer. And then we wanted to look between business and non-business. It was pretty close, but I want to remind you that 67% of business students were actually freshmen. And so that score brought them down. And I feel like if we had less freshmen in the business sample, we would have a better representation of what they could have done. We looked at honors and non-honors. Honor students did perform fairly well. And that was expected. Once you get into the honors program, you have to follow a certain curriculum and expose you to certain things. And I feel to even get into the honors program, you have to have certain financial literacy, and they put you through classes that are a little bit more rigid. Therefore, I feel like it would have helped them making the right decision, recognizing the difference at least. And then we looked at students with investing and no investing experience. Those with investing experience, they're self-reported, so they said that they have invested, test that. But as you can see, they did fairly better than those with no investing experience. And then we're going to look at spread. So spread is, let's say, on the second part of the survey where you test your own risk tolerance. You had conservative, but you were really an aggressive. The spread between conservative and aggressive, so you picked a 3, and then you chose a 5, that's a 2. But let's say that's a 2 average spread. But let's say you picked a 5 and you were a 2, that's still a 2 risk spread because a spread is an absolute value. So we are looking at the average between Survey A and Survey B. There was not much of a difference. Academic standing, as you can see, seniors became they did a little bit better on this. They were able to get a little bit closer to their actual risk tolerance compared to underclassmen. And those within the honors, non-honors had a little bit higher, the lower spread. The lower spread in non-honor students likely due to their sophistication. And a little bit of a smaller spread than those with non-investing experience. And so we wanted to see if any of the particular factors, by running a regression, multivariate logistic regression, actually would be able to give us a statistic significant level to say that was what affected the most. And we found that at the 0.05 level, the most significant variable was year, while the least significant variable was survey type. So regardless of the survey type, it didn't matter, whereas your academic standing was what really made the difference. In conclusion, the first question in the study was, does the number of investment choices of a investor making the right risk attitude. It was hypothesized that there would be, especially in the smaller option survey compared to the bigger option survey, so 5 versus 20. However, there was not. And then the second question was, if the characteristics of the student played a role into how they would perform. And we found that students with higher sophistication, such as honor students, upperclassmen, and students with previous investing experience, had a lower spread than underclassmen, non-honors, and students with no investing experience. Therefore, one can conclude that sophistication plays a major role in selecting the correct investment option. That's it. Thank you. Oh. Sure. So correct response is if you self-assess. So during the second part of the survey, you took the self-assessment risk test, and if your score was you are a conservative person and you're investing. Then on the third section of the survey, you actually picked out an investment option for you to invest in, and you picked out an aggressive, that would be an incorrect response. But if you gave yourself you self-assessed on the second part of the test, and you received a score of aggressive investor, and then you were able to correctly pick out the investment choice that matched your risk tolerance, and you picked out aggressive, then that would be a correct. Oh no. No, it's just based on whether you can recognize your own tolerance and pick out the investment choices that matches that risk tolerance. Of course. Yes, ma'am. Mm-hmm. I think so, actually. In all the literature that I had been reading, there was very little on novice investor, meaning like people that are just about to enter the real world, that don't actually have a job, that don't have 401k plans, or if they do, they have very little invested in it. And so I wanted to do a study on that. But then at the same time, I feel like if I had gotten a big, like with the business students, I know for a fact we received certain classes that helped us in that, but because our sample was mostly freshman students, that highly affected it. So if there was a way to get a larger sample than that, or if to go around to different universities, that would really have impacted my survey. For future research, I'll get a sample of like 500. That would be fun. Try with graduate students, see how they performed against undergraduate students. Thank you. Mm-hmm. So there was only 3 options. So it's based on the percentage that you would put in each. So my options were to put your money in savings accounts, to put it in bonds, or to put it in stocks. So an aggressive would put like 90% in stocks, 10% in bonds, and 0% in savings. Whereas a conservative would put like 90% in savings accounts, and then 5 or 5. Especially if you're non-business, absolutely. I still think that when taking the survey, there might have been a misunderstanding of that they had to pick out the option that would match their risk tolerance, or they weren't financially educated enough. It's the difference between them, I guess. I believe that's why the seniors perform better, especially for B. If you look at a subsample of business students, and you break it down by freshmen to seniors performed way better than freshmen, sophomores, and I guess they had a little bit better understanding of the difference in the third section. Well, thank you guys so much.